Meet David Amos, the managing director of Plus Row Limited, who has built multiple high-performance teams, led innovative change projects. With his involvement in the green hydrogen and clean power solutions, Amos combines deep technical insight with strategic vision, making him a highly sought-after leader in Plus Row Limited.
You seem to be a master at building partnership, which may still bring me back for you to, maybe when you've gathered your thoughts on, walk me through.
I often used to look at myself and say, well, you don't really have any particular skills, qualifications or whatever. But I came to recognise that one of the skills I've got is getting groups of people to work together. Because a lot of the projects that I ran as a consultant, or when I was working in organisations, involved lots of different people, lots of stakeholders. And I appeared to be quite good at that. And it goes back to the points I was saying earlier. I'm inherently curious and interested in what organisations do, what makes them tick, how they work, what are their priorities, what are the wins that they need to get. That's just something I naturally find fascinating. So, and that then allows you to work out, well, if these people are going to partner with us or provide something that we want, what's in it for them? How do I create that environment where they get what they want? And thankfully, that's just something that seems to be an inherent part of my personality. It's my natural way of working, I think.
That's pretty. I really love that.
Yeah, and recognising, and seeing the benefit that brings. So once actually this is really helpful to trying to get things done, then clearly you continue to work on it and develop it and sort of use it to its full effect. So.
Wow, that's brilliant! Like a genius level of things. Because the fact that I'm still going back in my head how you did the event. This company has already built its technology. They are looking for ways to show the technology, and you combined brought everybody together, and everybody wins.
Yeah, and so we're working with spin out from Strathclyde University at the moment that has got a very interesting new electrolyzer technology. So that's the technology that produces hydrogen. They're still very early stage, but so we've got a memorandum of understanding with them that when they get their will help them with provide our insights into how we think the market is going and what their technology should how it could help the market. And then we've also agreed that we will test their technology when they're at the point where it's ready to be tested in the field. And that's clearly going to help them and hopefully build a successful Scottish business, but it also gives us early access to a technology that could give us a competitive advantage as well. So if it is as efficient and offer the benefits that we think it could do if they can get it to work properly, then by helping them we can then get to use it quickly, and that then allows our business to reduce its costs or be more successful. So it has that really potentially positive upside, for our growth and success as well.
Hydrogen is a clean energy. Electricity is a clean energy. What are the pros and cons of why did you choose hydrogen when EV?
Just use the electricity directly. And it's you've highlighted one of the big debates that's going on, and unfortunately, as always happens in these debates, people tend to just paint things in a black and white, so you've got the electrify everything brigade, don't just use the electricity directly. Why on earth would you use electricity to produce hydrogen when you waste, in inverted commas, a some of that energy in heat when you're producing hydrogen. So so Elon Musk, so the two ways of using hydrogen as a fuel are through either put it into a fuel cell, which converts the hydrogen back into water and electricity. So hydrogen cars are in effect electric cars with fuel cells fitted that provides the electricity for the batteries and the motor. So Elon Musk calls fuel cells full cells, because he said, well, you waste 50% of the energy producing the hydrogen as heat, and then when you convert it back to electricity, you waste another 40% of it. So the sort of the end-to-end efficiency is really poor compared to putting the electricity back, straight into the car's batteries. And to an extent, he is right, but that ignores a whole range of factors. So for instance, in Scotland, we have a huge amount of renewable energy from the wind, but there is frequently a big gap between when the wind is blowing and all that power is being produced and when there is a demand for electricity. So there is a significant proportion of the renewable power generated in Scotland, and with any renewable development, is wasted because there isn't a demand for the electricity. And you can't store it in batteries because you're talking about terawatt hours of kind of energy storage, and there's just not enough batteries in the world to store that much, and it would be very expensive. So at the moment, the wind farm companies are paid by as electricity consumers to switch the turbines off. So all of that wasted energy could be used to produce hydrogen, so that the renewable companies are getting paid for their electricity as they are when they have to switch it off, but that electricity is then being used to produce hydrogen. So and then also when you put electricity into an electrolyzer, it produces three things. It produces hydrogen, it produces oxygen, and it produces heat. So if you've got a use for and a value from the oxygen and from the heat, then it's not wasted. You're actually producing a valuable product. So our first hydrogen production plant in the Western Isles in Lewis, the oxygen will be getting supplied to the fish farming industry because they use a lot of compressed oxygen in various stages of the fish farming process. So we will be generating revenue from what in Elon Musk's view is a waste product, but it's only a waste product if you waste it. If you've got customers for it and they'll pay for it, then it's not a waste product. So it's horses for courses, really. So I've got an EV and I think it's great, and I think if you I'm not convinced that hydrogen for cars is the right technology, because the battery EV technology works really well. For large trucks, hydrogen might be a good option, because getting enough energy stored in batteries for big trucks takes quite a lot of the payload away from the truck, whereas you can get more energy stored in hydrogen form on the truck than you can in battery form. So unless there's a big breakthrough in battery technology over the next few years, then it may be that hydrogen for trucks and heavy off-road vehicles and things could be the most cost-effective sort of way of decarbonising them. But yeah, it's very much the application and location sort of specific. So yeah, we tend to look for hydrogen production locations where we can use the heat and we can use the oxygen so that nothing is wasted.
So who is David outside of hydrogen?
Unfortunately, and anybody that's listening to here who's setting up their own business or has been running it for a while will probably recognise that you get, if you're passionate about what you're doing, it tends to absorb you. So there hasn't been as much time out with Plus Zero over the last few years for David Amos to do some of the other things that he quite likes doing. So one of the things I do try and make time with was so my wife's family are all from Harris in the Western Isles, native Gaelic speaking crofting sort of background. So my wife inherited her father's croft, which is a sort of small holding in Harris. So we have 36 acres and an old house on Harris, which we are slowly but surely trying to bring back to life. So heading up there at the weekend. It helps that our hydrogen production facility is in Lewis, which is connected to Harris. So I can combine work with a bit of trying to bring a old croft back to life. So I used to play music quite a bit. I played the trumpet.
Really?
And was reminded how much I enjoyed that when we had a 40-year reunion of the band that I used to play in summer, where we got back together from all over the world and played a gig.
Really?
Wow. That reminded. I played trumpet, so it just reminded me how much I enjoyed playing music and being on the stage with friends. So I've been making a bit of an effort to try and keep practicing my trumpet. But yeah, it's if you're running a business that you're passionate about, and it does tend to be a bit all-consuming. So probably good advice is to tell people to try and get the balance right.
Wow, I could not. Well, I didn't know you play any instrument.
Not very well, but
wow. So I'm looking at, for this is going to get seen by business owner, people who are starting, who are growing, people who are at the stage that they are exiting. What will David of today tell the David that wanted to start Plus Zero?
He would probably tell him to not let it take over his life quite so much, and just to try and get the balance a bit better. Thankfully, I've got a wife who you could say is long suffering, so she knows what I'm like, and therefore was willing to put up with it. But particularly if you're younger and starting off, it might be worthwhile just remembering that there are others in your life, whether partners or children or whatever, that don't forget them, and just try and get that balance right. So yeah, it has been a bit all-consuming, and I would say I'm making a bit of an effort to try and get that balance better at the moment. But ultimately, your plans for when you start your business, unless you're incredibly lucky, aren't going to be how it works out. So you just have to be willing to. As people say, just keep your focus, just go down that rigid line, don't veer left to right, just focus on doing it. I'm not convinced. I think yes, if there's definitely a market there for what that is, but ultimately things will come along that will require you to change your thinking a bit, I think. So certainly we've had to be very flexible in Plus Zero in terms of to allow us to navigate what is a very difficult sector at the moment, and make sure that we're still here and still got money to pay salaries now and get the business growing. So the business doesn't look what I was expecting it to when I first started. When I first started in the business, my real interest was on building hydrogen equipment and hydrogen generators. That was because I like making stuff. But I very quickly realised that probably wasn't the right place to start. We needed to kind of create a complete package a complete solution for customers, and using other people's equipment was the quickest and easiest way to do that. So we might get back eventually to making something, because I quite like the idea of making something, but at the moment it's much more about bringing together other people's solutions into that complete package that can meet the customer's needs. I mean, we will be making hydrogen, so that when the facility opens next year, we will be producing hydrogen and oxygen and heat. So I suppose I'm meeting my my desire to make stuff.
That's pretty cool. What's the future of this business?
So if we take Plus Zero Power, so that's the business that provides the hydrogen equipment and hydrogen and that complete package solution to customers. So that is on a trajectory to grow through just revenues, sales. So, and it's probably going to grow through the construction sector. So at the moment, our view is that the construction sector seems to be the sector that's decided that hydrogen technology is going to be one of the ways in which they meet their own decarbonisation goals. And let's say companies like Balfour Beatty, who we work closely with, and others have put a lot of investment and resources into working out how they as a business can use hydrogen. So and that's a big sector in the UK. So and is now starting to bring opportunities for companies like us to bid into larger contracts. So I think Plus Zero Power will grow organically. Potentially it could get to being a large, 10, 20, 30, 50 million pound turnover company by the end of the year. If only by the end of the decade. Wishful thinking on my part. And that just grow with the market as more and more companies. There will be so there's investment going into hydrogen production plants around the UK, subsidised by UK government. So a bit like the renewables industry, the wind industry, in order to get that going, the government made subsidies available. They're doing the same for hydrogen production. So the cost of hydrogen will come down in 1-2 years' time, so to a level that is equivalent to diesel prices. So, wow. And at that point, there is no financial barrier to adopting hydrogen. At the moment, it's expensive, so if you want to use hydrogen, then it will cost you more, and therefore you've got to be pretty committed to your decarbonisation goals as an organisation, because it is going to cost you. That will change once the subsidised hydrogen production plants come on stream, and at that point we see very rapid growth, and we're putting a lot of effort into positioning ourselves so that at the point where the cost of hydrogen is no longer a barrier, that we're able to sort of grow and expand quite quickly. Plus Zero Energy, the hydrogen production, our first plant opens next year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Well, if you want to come up, then we would happily let you come and broadcast from our facility. And so on the back of that, we hope to be able to raise funding to build the next plant. So our first plant is quite small, and slowly but surely we will work our way up towards larger scale plants. But that will require us being able to raise the capital to do that. So